Call the regular council meeting of, no, I've got the minutes in front of me, of September 11th to order. I just about read out the minutes. We have in front of you an agenda. Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Adey, Councillor Randhawa, any discussion, items, deletions? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Before we move on to the delegation, last time we met failed to acknowledge that over the course of the summer, Chief Harold Layton was inducted into the Order of BC. And he, along with Ryan Reynolds, and so perhaps he didn't get as much press as he could have because the movie star took over. But I do want to acknowledge Chief Layton for multiple years of service to his community and the North Coast, and certainly that order was well deserved. We do have a delegation that has just joined us. We have Josephine Schrott from who is an analyst with EcoTrust. We can see you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can see and hear you. Hi.
Excellent. And I'll just tell the members of the public, if you happen to pick up an agenda or go online and look at the agenda, you would think we have a very, very full meeting tonight. But if you take out the EcoTrust report, it's actually a fairly thin agenda. So take it away.
All right, let me just share my presentation here. So hopefully, let me just put that in full screen. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so I was told to keep it very brief, contrary to the report, which is quite detailed. So like you mentioned, I'm an analyst with the Community Energy Initiative at EcoTrust Canada. So EcoTrust is a nonprofit, and our Community Energy Initiative, we do work around energy efficiency and affordability, both kind of on the policy advocacy side of things, as well as actual direct installation work with communities, and then sort of the local government community level collaboration, like we have done with the City of Prince Rupert. So this year, what we did with the city was complete a feasibility study. And that was basically just to look at what are the opportunities in the City of Prince Rupert for folks to do home upgrades, what are the cost benefits, etc. So I will jump right in. One of the things we did is we took a bunch of types of homes that are common in Prince Rupert and used actual energy assessment data from those to kind of model, if you did a certain kind of upgrade, what would that save? What kind of rebates could you get? And what would be the impact in terms of emissions as well? And so you can see here two types of homes, one that uses gas heating, one that has electric baseboards, and we're modeling both to be upgraded to a heat pump and as well upgrading some of the insulation. And so with that combination, you can see there's actually quite a lot of money available in terms of rebates from the federal and provincial government, more when you're switching from a fossil fuel. And then the energy savings actually turn out to be quite high.
Pause you just for a second. I don't know if we got a problem with the slide. Have you moved past your cover slide?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, that's what I suspected. We are only seeing...
Oh, I don't know if I can still hear you now.
Is it? If you want to suggest click on slideshow. It's being. I'm not techie, but if you hit the slideshow, we're not getting the slideshow. We're actually getting the full screen that includes.
Okay, I see what you're.
There we go.
Yeah, let me just try and reshare there. Sorry about that.
No. I just don't want to miss what you're saying.
Yeah, no, thanks for alerting me to that. Let me try and see if I can get in here first. Oh, no, I cannot share my screen. I'm gonna try again, but if it doesn't work, I don't know if someone at the city has a copy that they could pull up. I think that might be helpful just as a backup. And then let me just see if I try it from here. Are you able to see the current slide?
So I mean, we see your second slide now. We also see the outline down the side of all of these
slides. I see.
Yeah.
It's likely that your computer is sharing, if you have two screens, it's sharing
Yeah.
screen one instead of screen two. That's what it is.
There we go.
Okay.
I think we've got your briefing notes as well, but that's okay.
Yeah, you have all the details. There isn't a ton in there. I don't know how to change that.
That's working. Oh, but
Here.
You're able to advance the slides though, right?
How about that?
Yep.
I minimized it a little bit.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. If there weren't tech issues, would it even be a Zoom call? Okay. So I was talking about this modeling here that we did. Essentially, just to give people an idea of kind of the savings that are available, the rebate amount that is out there, and then also when you extrapolate this to the community level, you have quite significant aggregate savings in terms of kind of helping folks out with their energy costs, their home affordability in general, and also the community emissions reductions can be quite significant, especially if you're switching folks over from fossil fuel heating. That's kind of the switch from fossil fuel to heat pump is something like taking 2 cars off the road per year. Okay, so there's a lot more detail in the report on that, but another thing we looked at are barriers. So, given the case is actually pretty compelling in terms of the savings and some of the other, positive side benefits around health and indoor air quality, what's preventing people from pursuing this kind of upgrade in the city? And so we did a survey with folks, and we also talked directly to individuals and organizations, and we can kind of group the barriers into 3 broad categories. One is around information and awareness. So folks not knowing that rebates are out there and available to them, or how to access them, not having a sense of kind of the cost benefits scenarios. And then, of course, cost and affordability is still a challenge, even with rebates in play. And there's also some challenges around contractor availability and capacity as well. And so in the report, we also go into recommendations around how to address some of these barriers. And so they basically, the recommendation, one of the key recommendations is to offer some kind of support program that kind of helps move folks along through the whole upgrade process and provides support in the places where there's gaps along the way where people get stuck. And so, of course, up front, right away, there's a need for a bit of public awareness and education, and then also offering a bit of individual guidance for those more specific questions that households have. And then, connecting folks to the rebates and other resources that are out there, connecting to contractors and working with contractors to share that information out. And then also following up to make sure that everything is functioning as needed, and sort of measuring the impacts. So this is kind of very broadly the recommendation. And then this is actually very exciting and recent news is that we are currently working on a fully funded upgrade support program that can start likely early next year. And we have confirmed that we will be able to extend this to City of Prince Rupert residents. So the timing works out really great that we just finished the study. We have a sense of what's needed, and the proposed program includes all these components that I was talking about in terms of addressing the local barriers. So we'll announce more details about that very soon. And then we of course, so this would be an EcoTrust Canada run program, but of course we would benefit from collaboration from city staff around some of the awareness and getting the word out about that. And I will just leave it at that. Please feel free to reach out if you have questions. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions right now as well, or later on with my email, and I'll just stop sharing here.
Excellent. Let's just see if council has any questions. Councillor Adey.
Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for this very substantial report. I was reading through it this afternoon, and I found myself reading through it as a homeowner, very much with my home in mind. I think it's the only way to frame something like this when you're diving into it for the first time. And I'm really happy to hear about the support program and your announcement, because my takeaway from it was that there needed to be a home upgrades for dummies version of this, so I knew, where my house circumstances fit into it. And there's a kind of you can really get into the weeds with all of the different options for rebates and so on, both federally and provincially. So I found myself going, I have no idea which ones of these apply to me, and so on. And my home is different in character from the home next door. We have a combination of gas and electric heat in our home. So what's needed is for me to be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody and say, here's my circumstance. Can you come and have a look and tell me what the best way to go is? And if there's a way to get to there, then I think that you'd solve the uptake issue, which is, I think on page 56, it says, it's got a chart saying how low the current uptake is. I'm assuming that some of the reason for that is the complexity of the questions. And you look at the things that motivate people, and the very first motivation is, how do I get my heating cost, have my energy costs down? So it really does come down to that money piece. So it's very encouraging because there's really good financial incentives there. It's a question of how to get them to become your practical reality without breaking your brain trying to figure it all out. Yeah. So this is welcome news. I appreciate it very much.
Anyone else?
Thank you for your thoughts on that.
Councillor Cunningham.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the report. It's very thorough, points out a lot of things in that. But from the other side of it, if we've got 5,000 residents in town here, if half of them were to switch over to heat pumps, that would, and an average heat pump, I believe, uses between 5 and 2,100 kilowatt hours a month. Where would all this electricity come from, especially if half those houses too also went to ECs? I was at a convention a little while ago, and I actually asked an engineer from BC Hydro about the grid and what it can support and can't support, and they readily admit we need another 2 Site C dams just to keep up with what is projected. And we're a small rural town that is already encouraging industrialization, which is a lot of more electricity. And so this is all fine and dandy, but the environmental impacts of 2 more Site C dams, when 1 Site C dam is so controversial, and if you go to wind turbines, I'm looking farther down the road. I like all this idea. I'd love to put a heat pump in my house and save money, but the environmental impact on the rest of the province and the rest of the country to upgrade to these things, where we don't seem to be looking at the whole picture. Like the blades on a wind turbine, they're having trouble recycling them now. They don't know what to do with them. They're 90 feet long, and it's a fiber carbon tech thing, and and we go on, and we're always at pushing this new technology without really looking past what it's going to impact it's going to have on the rest. Already most of our rivers have dams on them. They're impacting fishing and everything else. And I just wonder where these thought processes go when we're just looking at just Prince Rupert, and we don't have the electrical grid right now to support this. And we've had industries come here and look at it and say, well, we need more electricity. things like this. And so it just boggles my mind that we keep looking at a small picture, not the big picture. That's all.
Ms. Schrott, did you have any comment on that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're not in the business of electricity supply, but I hear your concern around that, and certainly long-term thinking is really important around that. I think it's safe to say that there's also some significant environmental impacts around natural gas. So I think that has to be weighed. Of course, there's environmental impact for producing electricity as well, but I think it's generally considered much more sustainable. So that's one thing. And I think BC Hydro is also working on the supply side of that. As you said, they are aware of that issue, but obviously I can't speak to that. I don't work for BC Hydro. So I think the plan for our end is just to encourage that uptake, and that's not going to happen overnight. So even, for instance, with switching from an electric baseboard to a heat pump significantly reduces energy use. So there will be some balancing as well around, the amount of electricity used. But certainly, yeah, there's going to have to be some increase in supply.
Councillor Forster.
Thank you. This is a wonderful report. I, like others, read this thinking of my own home, calculated how much I spend per month. Was quite surprised once I worked it out. But a question I had, and I found a lot of conflicting information when I researched it. I came into reading the report with an assumption, and I don't know where I got it, that heat pumps don't work well in Prince Rupert as a climate. And it might be because I'd heard that in Terrace, but our temperature doesn't have enough highs and lows to make it economically viable. And this report said something different. And when I researched it, I found a lot of conflicting information. Where would I find the most accurate information? Because a lot of this does suppose that people would move, if they went with this, to an electric heat pump. But when I talk to contractors, when I talk to different people, they say that won't work here. So I'm just wondering where I can find the best source of information for that.
Ms. Schrott.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very, very common concern. So I think one thing I would say there to keep in mind is that heat pump technology has evolved significantly. So their ability to work in colder climates, which is often a concern of people, is now way better than it was even a few years ago. So sometimes people are thinking of like the first older heat pumps. Yeah, so I think from what we've seen, and we've worked with actual heat pump installation projects with First Nations along the BC coast, including in Bella Bella and on Vancouver Island, and so they're working really well. They're seeing significant savings there, and so I think the important thing is getting the right kind of heat pump for the climate to make sure that it does work in the range of temperature that Prince Rupert does have. But in BC coastal climates in general, because the temperatures don't fluctuate as much, heat pumps actually work really, really well. And so, yeah, in general, they're a great solution as long as you get the right one and it's properly installed. And so, for that reason, the work with contractors is also important because they, of course, need to be keeping up to date with heat pump technology. And you do have at least one contractor in Prince Rupert that is registered with all the rebate programs and is actively installing heat pumps on an ongoing basis, and would be able to give you exact information on where that's at and how they're working.
Great. Councillor Randella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thanks for the report. Just a quick question, if you have any plan to, how if our residents want more information on this project, if you have any plan for educate people or how people can get engaged, so where they can get more information. So if you can update on that, please.
Ms. Schrott.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have put out a blog post that sort of summarizes all this in a short and accessible way. That's up on the Ecotrust Canada website. That just kind of summarizes the feasibility study. And then as we're planning the actual program implementation, we'll be able to make more announcements around, the programming, where people can go, who the contact is, et cetera. We don't have that in place yet, so we'll announce that as soon as it is. But we are, working with Veronica at your city staff person there, who's I think going to also add some information to the City of Prince Rupert website to direct people to the resources as they develop, and to the existing resources as well that are already out there. So, for instance, the provincial government is the BC Better Homes website is a great place to start right now. They also include other, like the federal rebates and other programs, so they're kind of the most comprehensive starting point that's currently in existence.
Great. Good. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
All right. All right, Council, we'll move on. Public comments regarding agenda items. If there's a member of the public that wants to speak to Council on any... It's hard to do this when there's really just one person I'm staring at in the gallery. But they're not moving, so we'll continue along. There is a consent agenda in front of you. I'd entertain a motion that all items on the consent agenda be accepted and noted as filed. Councillor Adie, Councillor Randhawa. Any comments or questions? I would draw public attention to the fact that there's a number of things here, including the Eco Trust report, which is substantial. And if you read through the executive summary, the sort of key finding there is that in Prince Rupert in particular, because of the high natural gas costs, there's an added incentive to switch from a natural gas furnace to a heat pump. But also a report from the Chief Financial Officer with regards to the financial variance report, worth going through and just seeing how we're doing financially, and then a report from planning with regards to development activity up to date. And with that, I've got my motion. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda? Any opposed? It is carried. We then move on to reports, and we have a number of them surrounding development variance permits. 7A is a report from planning with regards to development variance permit 2314 for 108 Rutherham Place, with a recommendation the council proceed with the approval for DVP 2314 for 108 Rutherham Place. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillors Cunningham and Skelton Morven. Before we do that, can I just ask very quickly if there were any comments received back from the public?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did receive one telephone call from a gentleman inquiring about it. His questions were answered, and he was fine. No comment was.
Thank
no
you very
further
much.
comment made.
Any other comments? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Report from planning with regards to the development variance permit 2315 for 640 8th Avenue East, with a recommendation that council proceed with approval for DVP 2315 for 640 8th Avenue East. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillors Forster and Adie. Any discussion? Councillor Adie.
Can I ask you a question for you? And I think it stands for all of these. We're all on the same stage.
And I will check in with Steph on each one.
Was there any public response?
Public comment?
Thank you. I received no comments on any of the development variance permits on the agenda this evening.
And any of the remainders? Okay,
Correct.
thanks. That saves some time. All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. There is a report from planning, and just for the sake of public that may have only just dialed into this very one meeting, wondering why we're racing through them. These were all presented in a previous meeting. They were considered, and then council approved them to go out to public consultation with neighbors and get feedback. And so now, as we go through them, that's the reason for the question. But we're quite familiar with the requests of each one of them. Report from planning with regards to DVP 2316 for 618 Ritchie Street, with a recommendation that council proceeds with the approval for DVP 2316 for 618 Ritchie Street. Councillor Skelton Morven and Councillor Forster. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. And a report from planning with regards to DVP 2317 for 1321 Overlook Street with a recommendation that council proceeds with approval for DVP 2317 for 1321 Overlook Street. Councillor Adie, Councillor Randhawa, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. A report from the Chief Financial Officer with regards to the service provider agreement for the Prince Rupert Golf Club with a recommendation that council approve the service provider agreement between the City of Prince Rupert and the Prince Rupert Golf Society for the purpose of insurance coverage with the Municipal Insurance Authority of British Columbia with the date as set out in the service provider agreement. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Randhawa, Councillor Adie. Any discussion? Comments? So just again for the members of the public, this is an agreement that once in place allows the golf course to take advantage of some savings by participating in the Municipal Insurance Association. All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We have a report from the Chief Financial Officer with regards to the appointment of an external auditor service. Recommendation that council appoint Vorhara LLP CPAs and Business Advisors as the city's external auditor for the fiscal year ending 2023 to 2026. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Skelton Morvan, Councillor Cunningham. Again, for members of the public, in the report it outlines that there were 3 bids received. This was the lowest price one. They happen to be located here in Prince Rupert, and so that's the nature of the report. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We move on to bylaws. Permissive property tax exemption bylaw number 3521 with a recommendation that council repeal permissive property tax exemption bylaw number 3501 2022 and that council introduce and give first, second, and third readings to the City of Prince Rupert permissive property tax exemption bylaw number 3521 2023. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillors Adie and Randhawa. The outline of the permissive tax exemptions are there, and I don't think there's any significant change when I go through that. There's a number of them. If you know, people go through the list, you can see it online. There are churches and service organizations and senior centers, senior accommodations. The one that has popped up in the last number of years is an arrangement with Canfisco with regards to a portion of their property that's now used for recreation for the people of Prince Rupert, both in terms of the launching of boats and parking and gymnastics and other activities in that area. All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. With that, council, I'd entertain any comments or questions that you have at this particular moment. Oh, no, that's covered all. First, second, third reading is all in one motion. Regional district does it one at a time. We're more efficient. Did I say that out loud? All right. So yes, any comments or questions from council? I would like to just comment very, very briefly on why we're having a 5 o'clock meeting as opposed to a normal 7 o'clock meeting, and that was there's an opportunity for some of us to participate in an event that would potentially lead to some development in Prince Rupert, which would be significant, and there was no other way to time it other than doing it this evening, and so. Thank you very much, council, for being flexible, and we appreciate the public being accommodative too, and hopefully we can have some success later on as well. Any other comments or questions from members of council? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. I got a motion from Forster. I'm going to actually, Randhawa is going to. I don't think I've given you the first, so you get the first. So, moved and seconded, Randhawa and Forster, all in favor. Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned, and we will reconvene in 5 minutes to a closed meeting.